Caroline England with us, who will introduce herself shortly. Cara Cooper is joining us shortly. She's having some technical difficulties. And sadly, Mel Conley, who writes as M.A. Conley, couldn't join us today. But if you saved your questions for this Sunday, I'm hosting an author chat with her in our events tab at 4:15 on Sunday. So let's kick off with Caroline England. Hi.
Hey, hello everyone. Hope everyone's okay out there and enjoying lockdown. Lots of reading, hopefully.
Do you want to introduce your current book for us?
Yeah. Well, I sort of have a couple of current books at the moment, but this one, Betray Her, it's try and get it in the middle. This has been out on Kindle for quite a while, and it's been out in a bigger trade size paperback. But the standard UK paperback will be published in July the 16th, I think. So what I thought I would do is do a giveaway. This is a copy. And I thought it'd be nice if I did a giveaway on the Facebook page. And now my books are pretty much, obviously there's crime because it's crime fiction. And there's always more hidden crime than on the page, but there's lots of secrets and lies and betrayal and all that type of stuff. So I thought I'm going to put a post on the page, and to enter the competition, to be in a chance with winning it, you've got to tell us one of your secrets or a lie. So that could be interesting.
That could be really interesting.
Everyone's got to fess up.
Yeah, dig deep, people.
Yeah, so that's that one. But just briefly, my other book that's actually out at the moment is under my pen name. Oh, there we go. This is available now. It was published in January, and this is my pen name, Caroland. Do you see where I've come from there? I've trimmed the Caro line and I've trimmed the England. So
Clever.
This is my other book that's out at the moment, and this introduces my feisty female solicitor, Natalie Batch. And she's also going to make an appearance in June. June is book 2 of this series. This is Convictions. And on June the 10th, the second one along, sorry, I keep going the wrong way. There's the camera. Is called Confessions, and that will be out then. And I think this is a good read for lockdown times because it's legal. It's based in a solicitor's office, but it's not sort of boring legal. It's more the fun, the crime, the office gossip, the secrets, the relationships. So it's sort of like, I'd say, legal uplit even, not lit. So it's a good feel, and it's got lots of humour in it, as well as there's darkness as well, and action and crime. So there you go, that one as well.
Brilliant, and thank you so much for running a competition as well.
Oh, right, great.
We love that.
Yeah.
For anybody watching who wants to ask some questions or tell us a secret, if you hold off on your secrets for Caroline's post, which will come after the chat, but any questions, and ask away, and we'll try and get through as many as we can towards the end. So the first thing I really want to ask is, how are you? Obviously, it's an unusual time for us all. How are you doing?
It's fine for me because as a writer, I'm basically in this room every day anyway, beavering away at my novels and whatnot. And it's quite nice for me because the whole family are home in lockdown. So I'm quite enjoying myself. I know that sounds awful, really, but it's much of the same. And today I've been very good. I've put on clean clothes instead of like my greasy hoodie and joggers, which I normally, so there's no change there either. It's what I normally wear, sort of like, clothes that need a wash, possibly.
I'm feeling like a bit like a newsreader. I have got tracky bottoms on, so nice dress for the half, dressed up for the top half, but trainers and tracky bottoms nice and comfy for the other.
Well, as long as you've got some bottoms on, because there's been a few things, haven't
Absolutely.
On the
internet. Yeah, no, definitely. I promise. UK Crime Book Club members and admins, I am dressed. So what was your route to publishing? How did you become an author? What made you want to become an author?
Right, well, it started, my career was as a solicitor, and so I always liked writing, but I've got 3 daughters, so I sort of went down from full-time job to 4 days a week. Then I went on to a 2-day job share, and then eventually sort of went to zilch. So when I was at home bringing up my daughters, I felt I should do something, and I like writing. I wrote short stories, and I also wrote novels in the writing closet. I didn't tell anyone about the novels. It seemed a bit embarrassing. But I did send my short stories off, and eventually a few got published, and an editor got in touch and said, "Would you like to do a short story collection?" So that sort of gave me the boost to think my writing must be okay. So then I went back to the novels, and I was very lucky, and I got picked up by a literary agent through a short story, as it happens, and then she thought. And this is in more recent times, because I think I was first published in 2017. I don't even know what century we're in. So my debut was, I've got it here, my debut was Beneath the Skin. But on as an ebook, they changed the title to The Wife's Secret, so people get a bit confused. That was my debut with HarperCollins. And then the second one along was My Husband's Lies, and that became a Kindle top 10 bestseller. And in fact, it just went to a little mini auction for the audio rights. So I'm really excited. The audio will be out in June. Yeah, so that's that. I don't know if I've even answered your question, but
we've got a question. It doesn't tell me who, it just says Facebook user, but it says, how many books do you write in a year? 2 at least, I'm guessing, impressed. Well, how many books do you write in a year?
It's a tricky one, really, because I think I probably write at least 1 a year. But because I was in the closet writing my novels, I had a backlog. So I've just written my 14th novel. I'm not saying they're all good, but so I've had so far, how many have I had published? I've had 4 published, and 2 more are going to be published this year. So I've got my other little backlog of books. And personally, I need to do that because I'm not an author that can sort of write under pressure, I don't think. Whereas a lot of colleagues and friends, they will get a 3-book contract and they'll only have 1 of the 3. And that would freak me out. So yeah, I'd say sort of 1 a year and sometimes 2 a year.
When it comes to marketing, do you have people to help you, or do you do lots yourself? How does it work for you?
I think all authors are the same now. Even if you sort of have a big publisher with the resources, they do obviously do marketing and whatnot. But as an author, you have to very much put yourself out there too. So I think it'd be lovely if they just waved a magic wand and it all happened. But yeah, which is why poor people out there, you probably get fed up of seeing me on Twitter and whatnot. But that was Leslie Thompson.
I was just going to say,
by Leslie Thompson.
It was. So thank you for that question, Leslie. Our technical superstar Kaz have no idea why it's coming up as an anonymous on my screen.
Yeah,
another technical hitch, probably. Do you think having an agent is necessary?
A good one again. I think now, because there's so many indie presses and so much self-publishing and whatnot, and loads of really good indie presses as well as the big ones. I mean, even the sort of big 5 publishers, sometimes they do open submissions without an agent as well. But I think generally speaking, you can only do a submission through an agent. But there are loads of fantastic presses out there that you don't need an agent. But I suppose the other thing is, if you are lucky enough to get an agent, it's a bit of a buffer, isn't it, in between? So they're there to look after. Well, I suppose they're a bit like an estate agent or any agent, aren't they? They're the middleman, and they can broker things, and you can have a moan at them, or if need be, that. So it's good from that point of view. But then again, of course, you're giving them a little portion of your earnings as well. So
yeah. Seeing as we are a crime fiction panel, I am wondering, do you think it's more difficult for women to make it in crime, or do you think that's gotten easier as crimes become more mainstream again?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I used to know someone who got kids at school at the same time as me, and she was quite pompous about people who read crime. Why? I think there's some brilliant crime books out there, and I think it's great that the genre is again right up there at the top. And I don't know. I think people like crime, and there's some great stories, and I think probably yes, there's more opportunities writing crime, and it is people love it, don't they? So we've got an actual name now. We've got Valerie's name this time.
We have. We've got Valerie Keogh, and she wants to know, would you ever consider writing in any other genre? Now, you have written in others, but I'll let you explain.
Yeah, well, it was funny actually, because when I wrote Beneath the Skin, my debut, I just wrote a story I liked without really thinking about genre, because I don't think you do when you start. You don't realise particularly that it needs to be pigeonholed. And so I got my deal with HarperCollins, and my editor at the time said, "Oh, right, I want you to go to the crime writing festivals." And I thought, why? And she said, "Because it's crime fiction." And I was like, "Oh, right, okay." So I think my stuff, though, it does have crime, but it's not so much crime on the page or police procedural. It's more hidden crime that you discover through secrets and lies and whatnot. So it's, I suppose, the way I write anyway, it's psychological thriller, domestic noir. So it's sort of partly contemporary fiction anyway, I think, my type of writing. And the first book I wrote, actually at my solicitor's desk, but don't tell anyone, was it Chick Lit? So, and then of course my Natalie batch is legal, but that comes within the umbrella of crime anyway. So.
Yeah, one of the questions that was from Caroline Maston was, has lockdown affected your writing? So obviously you're saying you've got more time for your family at home, which you're right, is lovely. You know, it's nice to have something to make the most of, but has it affected your writing?
Yeah, they're annoying. They keep bothering me, No, it's pretty much the
Did they
same
at least
as
bring you cups of tea?
That's yeah. Yeah. My husband's in the other room and goes, "Can I have a piece of toast?" I'm writing. It's a job too. Yeah, no, it's pretty much the same actually, in fairness. Yeah.
Alexander James Hawley, hi Alex. With a legal background, have you used any of that background in your novels?
Yeah, definitely. I started off when I was a trainee solicitor doing a lot of crime, or practicing crime. I shouldn't say doing crime, should I?
Yeah, just to be clear.
Yeah, it was predominantly a criminal practice. So I used to go off to Strangeways Prison and interview all the prisoners and go down to the magistrates' court. And it was a really interesting insight because I met lots of people who were actually really nice people, but they were, they just lost their way. And things like, stealing cars and that type of thing. But then you get some rapists, some murderers. And of course, if the firm I work for got a murder case, it'd be like, yay, we've got a murder case, which is it's not very good, really, is it? But it was high profile, interesting work. And then I went, for some reason, I don't know why, when I qualified, I decided I wanted to do divorce work. And so I became a divorce lawyer for 3 years. And after the 3 years, I couldn't bear it anymore. But again, it's very much influenced my writing because it's all to do with relationships, people at the lowest ebb, what goes on behind the human facade. Because what you see isn't necessarily what's really going on. So it's been great, yeah. And it's nice not to do the law.
I wonder if they'd have some good answers for your secrets question.
Yeah.
I'm guessing there was a lot of material to be had there.
Yeah.
And we've got another question from Valerie Keogh. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, obviously, there's confidentiality, so you could never actually use an actual. Well, you can get, the cases, and it's amazing what human beings are capable of. But anyway, yes, sorry, you were going to go to Valerie's question.
From Valerie Keogh, yeah. What's your least favourite part of the writing process?
What about the 1-star reviews? Although I'm getting more used to them now. Some of them are really
yeah.
good. Like I don't mind a 1-star review if it's genuinely they've read it and it's not their cup of tea or whatever. But a lot of them say things like boring,
Mm,
and but then some of them are good as well. Like for example, My Husband's Lies,
nice.
an early review, 1-star review, said it was
Mm.
a jumbled mass of depravity. And I thought, hey, that's a good review.
Wow.
So I like that one. And
I was
then
going to say, I'm not sure that's a 1-star. I'd say that's a
I
5-star.
thought it was 5, yeah.
Mm. I've not got the name of this Facebook user, but will you write about 2020 and COVID-19? Heard this being asked a lot, and I know some authors want to leave it out because they want the novels to fit in whenever people pick them up. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I know it is. As you say, it's quite a big question at the moment. I don't, I suppose I feel at the moment we have no idea how it's going to work out, do we? So, you know, none of us know what's going to happen next week. Never mind. So I find personally it's quite
Mm.
hard to, even though it's interesting, and I'm sure a lot of crime novels could be really interesting in the context. But I think for me, I'm thinking, well, how do I write about something I don't know what's going to happen? But it will be
Yeah.
interesting, and I think it'll be more probably if I do it personally, it'd be more a passing reference rather than a real set in these times.
Yeah, that question was from Ellie Griffiths, so thank you,
Oh,
Ellie.
well, that's a pretty hot question. How about you, Ellie? Well, you're on later. You'll be able to tell us.
So Caroline Maston asked, what was your route to becoming an author? Now, you touched on it slightly, but when you came out of the writing closet, what was your first move?
Yeah, well, like everyone, well, most other authors, if you're trying to get a literary agent, it's submitting your first 3 chapters. So it's just, I'm sure most of us have had a million rejections, and you just have to send off your first 3 chapters and your covering letter and so on, and then either get no reply or get your rejection and feel really miserable. Then you have to pick yourself up and carry on. So it's that whole process of,
Yeah,
but at the same time, hopefully becoming a better writer and polishing and also learning things like your first draft is not going to be good enough even though you think it's brilliant at the time. So it's
yeah,
all that process of and carrying on writing more and I think getting a backlog if you can as well, because you've got a safety net then to sort of go back to.
yeah. How do you go about research? Do you have to do a lot of research, or do you already write things that you know enough about that you don't have to go back?
Yeah, well, I'm basically lazy. So I'm glad I'm writing about things that I know. Mainly, it's human beings. That's what I'm writing about. The human condition and what goes on behind, and all that sort of thing. And love as well. I always like to, I put some romance in all my books as well. So I'm writing about people. Whereas someone who's doing historical books, that they have to research and work hard. Sounds like hard work to me, but I do like many authors. I wouldn't want to disclose my search history. Some of the things you have to search, to get it right in a book, some weird and wonderful things. So I'm sure Ellie Griffiths and the rest of everyone out there has done some wacky searches.
Yeah, even me as a crime reader, lots and lots of searches.
Oh, right.
Absolutely. How difficult is it to vary the pace and build tension?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what that's what editors are always saying. They go pace, 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 pace. But you want to try and get everything in, don't you? So you've got to get. I'm really hot on characterization. And sometimes pace and characterization don't necessarily go hand in hand. So you do, but you can build pace by just doing things like your sentence structure. Do some small, some longer sections. Da da da. So as well, so there are other techniques, and some people like shorter chapters. I think increasingly my chapters are getting shorter, and uh, put in a bomb when the reader least expects it, you know, a twist, it's like, oh my word, or, you know, maybe kill someone, or discover a secret about them that you just do not know about. So all these interesting things, and if you leave a chapter on a cliffhanger, so hopefully the reader wants to turn and go, what's happening next? But it's a tricky one, yeah.
You have to stop keeping me awake at night.
I know that's
with your cliffhangers.
I know it's really bad. Crime authors can be bad for readers, and because like, you know, getting bags under your eyes.
Do you think people respond differently to male and female characters committing the crimes?
Yeah, I think so. I think people, maybe not people, but sort of societies maybe still a bit set in their ways, and it's like when it comes to the legal system, people are still more shocked if a woman does something dreadful than if a man does it, and they tend to judge a woman more harshly than they judge a man. So that's quite interesting. But yeah, I think though times are changing, and I think all the modern crime authors are jumbling it up and making it different, and we're getting a lot more strident, great character, female characters, police women, police persons, whatever you say now. You know, so you're getting some really good female characters coming out, as well as great male characters, of course. And I think
absolutely. Alexander James Hawley. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think you raised the question. I think Caroline, Kaz raised the question about writing men, women, writing female characters and the other way around. And I think that is interesting, isn't it? Because as a female author, can I really get into a man's mindset? And I do. A lot of my books are written, my first two have male points of view. And so I hope I've cracked it. But I just think at the end of the day, we're all human beings, aren't we? So we're all going to have those emotions and feelings that we're all the same. And it doesn't matter, you know, whether you're male, female, or your creed, religion, blah, blah, blah. So, sorry, yeah.
No, I suppose it's the same as you writing about another woman who's nothing like you. I suppose it's,
yeah.
You know,
or of course, all the crime authors out there. You're writing. You might be writing in the head of a killer. Hopefully, you've not gone and killed anyone. It's not method writing like method acting.
Yeah, let's not take the research that far.
Yeah.
I've got a question from Alexander James Hawley again. I can see that you're really excited about the audiobook. Who would be your dream narrator? Excellent question.
Oh, that'd be good. There'd be so many. Well, it's funny because the editor, you know, we had a bit of an exchange, and My Husband's Lies is basically from 4 points of view, to a female, to a male. And he automatically put forward female narrators. But I thought, even though it's from 2 and 2, it's predominantly, I think, it's about a girl and 3 guys who've been friends since school times. So I feel it's got more male dominated. So in fact, he agreed now. So I am going to get a male narrator, which I'm quite excited about. But I don't know, you know, Tom Hardy, if you're not reading any kids' books today, you could do it for me. That's fine, if you insist.
Should we tweet the BBC?
Yeah.
I've just had a quick note from Kaz that says that Cara Cooper's valiantly trying to join us, but still having technical problems. So hopefully she'll join us shortly. But we've got the gorgeous Caroline England keeping us busy for now. So let's carry on with questions for Caroline. What's the most fascinating subject you have researched? Now, you did say you've not done lots of research. Is there anything that you've found that has fascinated you?
Well, a book I've recently written has a character who has a narcissistic personality. And that's a really, really interesting area to look into, and all the traits of a narcissistic parent and whatnot. And I'm really, really fascinated by it. But now I'm looking at all sorts of people going, he's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. So I'm very interested in that sort of thing. And also some of my characters do have mental health problems of various things, so that's also very interesting as well, because I want to deal with it honestly and not make it a caricature and have it as, you know, an issue that is a really serious issue. So I always want to get it right. So that's when I do my research for things like that.
Yeah. Valerie Keogh has asked, how long does it take on average to write a book? Now, you've touched on the fact that you do roughly one a year. How much of that is spent writing before you get into everything else?
Well, Valerie will know that, well, I don't know if it's the same for Valerie, but for me, it's, sorry, there was a bit of echo going on there. I probably take your first draft, my first draft probably takes, what, 3 months? But that's very much a first draft, and then you come back to it again and again and again and again. And then, of course, a lot of it is editing, and then if it goes through the process, if you actually get published in then the whole process can take sort of a year, I guess, if not longer. So, and then some people will spend 5 years writing a book, won't they? But I'm personally not one of those authors that can. Some authors are fabulous. They can just write one and then another, and you just think, wow, how do they do it? So.
Question from Caroline Maston. Do you have a good editor?
Yes, yeah. At the moment, I'm my publisher is Piatkus from Little Brown, and they're the that's that one. And is it that though? It's not, doesn't say at the back of that. Anyway, so my editor at Piatkus, I can't really say it properly, but it's a funny word, is called Anna, and she's brilliant.
Sounds fine.
There are two, in fact, Anna and Hannah, and they're brilliant. They're so good because they're very collaborative. So that they don't say do this or do that or whatever, and they will sort of say, what do you think of this, and we can talk it through and decide. So I'm so enjoying doing books with them, and I've got another one coming out, hopefully an ebook in November, called Truth Games, and again we've just been doing the same collaboration with that. So yeah, I'm very lucky. It's great.
Something that often comes up in discussion with our authors. Hello, Cara.
Sorry.
We're so glad you could join us. So we'll just briefly stop and let Cara catch her breath. And introduce yourself, please, Cara.
Hi. I'm so sorry it took me so long to get on. I have managed via my laptop finally to make it. And I was sitting in a beautiful, clean, lovely, smart room, and now I'm just in my office at work, and it's diabolical. But anyway, just briefly to introduce myself, I do cozy crime for the People's Friend, and my weekly they do pocket novels, which are basically novellas which go for sale in supermarkets and places like the Coles, and I like to combine the crime with romance because I think that's quite a good combination. I hope to hit both levels there. So I've done also, I don't do grisly, well, I could do grisly murder, I'd be quite happy to do it, but I try and find something a little bit inventive. I don't know, I've done forgery, misappropriated identities. I've just not long ago had a ghost story out, which I quite enjoyed, and it involved a crime that took place centuries ago and gets solved. So so basically that's me. I'll show you how they go out. So these little pocket novels, they start off like this, so you can find them on your your shelves with the magazines, really, near the ladies' magazines. There's the ghost story. There we go. Sorry, I've got a little teeny screen here, and actually I think it comes up okay. So yeah, it's a bit disorienting.
Oh, it looks great. Yeah.
Well, okay. Anyway,
we can see them. They look great.
Thank you very much. And then what they then do is they go out as a large print edition like that. So that's my latest one. And that one is actually in the large print. They wanted to call it Missing in Paradise, but it's actually started off with People's Friend as Danger in Havana, and it's actually free on their website at the moment in a serial format. because I do serials for them as well, which is a very interesting way of writing and has its own challenges. I don't know whether either of you have ever done serials for magazines.
No,
Yeah,
but it sounds interesting though. But Charles Dickens didn't. He did that, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
And of course he was, so much more able. I can't imagine what doing that would be like, with that pressure for the length of books that he did, and to have a bit of a cliffhanger to make people keep on reading, and that's part of the challenge, really. Each separate episodes, and for People's Friend, they're usually about 8 episodes, has to end on a cliffhanger, and so you have to, each episode has to have its own little story arc, and then of course it has to feed into the wider story arc. So basically that's what I do.
So you can't rest on your laurels, can you?
No, you do have to press on, and I don't know, if you found as writers, if something stops the flow, then it's a bit, I always think of it as like a writing muscle. And if for some reason you come out of training for a period of time, it can really foul you up. Getting back into it can be massively difficult, and that's probably just because I'm terribly lazy by nature, and it's like climbing a hill, and I don't really enjoy climbing hills either. But yes, if anything brings you out of it, and I found the recent lockdown has stymied me a bit. I'm beginning to get back into it. I don't know how you guys have found it, but yeah. It's
funny you should say that, because I found if you write a manuscript and you don't look at it for a period of time for whatever reason, I think you have to. I tend to be lazy and I want to get back to it and start at the beginning, but you have to read into your own characters, because you need to get to know your own characters again. It's really weird. You think you know them, but
yeah. I mean, sometimes I find new things. I mean, I have on occasions started something. I'm not a great plotter at all. I'm a pantster, so I just get the grain of an idea, and very often I'll know the beginning and the end, but the other X thousand words in between, I've got no idea. And so I'll leap in enthusiastic, and I think I know where I'm going, and it's all wonderful, and then suddenly it stops working, and I hit like a brick wall, and occasionally I've thought to myself, this is never going to work, so I've put it away. But then years later I'll take it out, and it's almost like reading something that somebody else has written, and the logjam for some reason will have cleared. I think sometimes you can focus too much on something and you get a bit bored with it, and it becomes a trial. So sometimes I'll have 2 things on the go. I quite like having a longer piece of work and a short story on the go, because when I get fed up with one, or I find it's not working, I'll flip to the other one, and then I can, sort of be thinking of something else. Maybe that's what it is. One's mind needs to have a focus elsewhere.
I find a good soak in the bath.
Caroline, how about yourself for the I was just going to say, how does your style work? Do you plot? Do you pants? How do you work it?
Yeah, I'm similar to Cara. I'm very much a pantser. So again, I have a rough idea of the ending, I think, or because normally mine are secrets and reveals. So I'll have an idea of 1 or 2 secrets that I want to eventually reach. But the rest, as you say, it's a question of sitting there, and it's really weird the way sometimes the magic works, doesn't it? And you just you start thinking, wow. And it is amazing when it's happening, and frustrating when it isn't.
Oh, awful. Yeah. I mean, it's a massive relief when it starts writing itself. And I mean, I have various other ways of trying to clear a logjam. So sometimes if my husband and I go out walking, and we did used to walk actually a fair amount before this, and I will bore him silly with my, I'll say, problem here, and he'll say, oh, yeah, what's that sort of thing, and then I'll say, well, this is how it goes, and there's a whole screed of like half a book, and then I'll say, oh, actually I think so, basically you solve your own problem to a certain extent. Sometimes he'll say something and it does clear the logjam, but sometimes, oddly enough, I think verbalizing it telling a story suddenly sort of changes the dynamics in your head. I don't know how these things work.
So you're your own therapist?
Almost, yes. It is really, yeah. And I sort of think, well, why couldn't I have done that on my own? But maybe I'm sure he does make the odd input, fun very often. So these are actually very cozy crimes, and he'll suggest something like, oh, why don't you have so and so doing this, and it's really grisly, and I say, I can't do that. Everybody knows, don't they, when they pick up a book, they read the blurb on the back and they have a quick flick through the front, and they sort of hopefully by then know more or less what they're getting. It's like you pick.
Oops.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hope that Cara can join us again in a moment, another technical hitch. So let's go to another question for you, Caroline, from Kaz Maston. How useful is social media for marketing your novels?
Well, obviously, it's brilliant in terms of we all do it all the time. Facebook, Twitter, etc. Posting, and but I don't know if anyone can quantify it, I guess. It's, for example, blog tours are great, and bloggers are brilliant. They're so supportive of authors, and they'll do the reviews and they'll have their blogs, their sites, and they're really, really brilliant. But I still don't know, and I don't know if any of the publishers know whether that actually works, if it makes a difference in terms of sales and whatnot. But it's lovely, to get it out there, and to, try at least.
Valerie's just said we're magic, we're making writers disappear. Ta-da! Right, a question I love asking. I ask this on all my... Oh, I'll get you both. What are your most memorable moments as authors? We start with you, Caroline.
Well, being photobombed by Ian Rankin was a good one. At Harrogate.
Nice.
So it was my first Harrogate, and you don't really, because all the big names, people like Val McDermott and Mark Billingham and Ian Rankin, they're all just hanging around in the tent. And so I was with the little line of us sort of debut authors taking a photograph, and then behind us he was photobombing it. So that was fun. And then meeting Lee Child and daring to go up to him, going, oh, could I give you a copy of my book? And he was so delightfully said, of course you can, please, let's have a photograph. So we had a photograph of me and my book with him. But I had the book the wrong way round. So it was actually my husband's life. So instead of that way round, I've got it that way round. Idiot. They were both high points.
How about you, Cara?
Well, I think the highest point was the first time I had something accepted. And it was a short story many, many years ago for a magazine called Loving, which is sadly gone. It was a bit like Jackie. I don't even know if Jackie still exists, but it had a lot of stories in it, which were all basically largely teenaged angst. And I hadn't been submitting long, actually, and I'd sent the odd story. I didn't realise that actually it's a good idea to write as much as you can and send as much off as you can, and really go for it. So every now and then I'd write a story and bung it off and hope for the best. But I remember distinctly the letter coming in, and it said, "Yes, thank you. We'd like to accept your story," and they paid me the princely sum of £32, and I actually burst into tears. I thought, wow, somebody other than me, that tiny little grain of me that thinks, yeah, maybe I could do it, somebody else actually is happy. And then of course the thing arrives and you get it in a proper magazine, and I've still got that magazine. That was a high point. And the other high point, I think, I have a short story in a Jack the Ripper omnibus, which was it's edited by a chap called Maxim Jakubowski. I don't know if anybody knows him. I don't know him, but I'd seen his name many a time. He's been in the crime writing world, editing and writing, and I think he used to run a crime bookshop on the Charing Cross Road, which was very well thought of. And I'm want to transition to rather more gritty crime, and I'm working on a novel at the moment. But when he accepted the story for that, it's published by Little Brown, that was a high point. I thought, yeah, okay, I can do the grittier stuff as well, and somebody else thinks I can. So that's really nice.
Well, your hubby will be going, well, this is down to me on the walks, trying to get her to do it. Yeah.
As much credit as he possibly can all the time. He'll come up with a bright idea, and I'll say, yeah, but what's the beginning, the middle, and the end? And he said, oh, I don't really know. And I say, well, that's the challenging bit, with part, but actually putting it all together and weaving it into some sort of narrative. But he definitely feels that yeah, he's done it. Just gives me an idea, and
that's it. Yeah,
it's easy.
Now, I won't ask you who, but and where you could possibly have used them, but has anybody from real life ever made it into one of your novels? I'll start with Caroline, please.
Possibly. No, I'm sure I'm like most authors, where you might have a character that's an amalgam of different, so you obviously have to sort of hide them, otherwise you get sued, don't you?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
I'm sure we're all like that. We all get I mean, it's like, famously, I'm sure Cara's the same, where if someone's annoyed you, people go, crime authors go, well, I'll kill them, on the page, sort of thing. And I don't think I've killed anyone yet, but I might have them as not a very nice character. How about you, Cara?
Well, actually, I can tell you somebody who's in every single thing that I write, not in their entirety, but that's me. I think you can't avoid, as a writer, just putting some of yourself in, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
So my own petty squabbles and anxieties and joys actually they squeeze in somewhere, and I know this because my mother, who's very, very good to me, will, if I say, you read this, she will, and she'll quite often say, it's not really what I would buy, but she reads it. But she'll often say to me, yeah, I recognise this, that, so I think you as a person, it must be very difficult to take yourself out, because you do reveal elements of yourself in everything that you write, I think, potentially.
I agree completely. Yeah. Not the whole of you, but you pick bits out, or bits you don't really want people to realise is you.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got another question from Caroline Maston, which is, how do you get inspiration for your novels? I must get asked that a lot. Caroline. Oh, Cara. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want to dominate.
No, I've been rabbiting already.
Well, I always find it inspiring when I go on holiday. It doesn't matter where I go. It can be in Great Britain. I set one of the books in Wales after having a very sort of chilly, wet break. It was on a writing weekend, actually. But it was very atmospheric. The hotel we were at, it was near the sea, and then it had a proper forest behind it. And also we went to Costa Rica not so long ago, and just, I think, being somewhere fresh and new, not necessarily exotic, but different, I always find really inspiring. So this novel that's out at the moment, that's being serialized on the People's Friend website, is set in Cuba, and I went there with my daughter a few years ago, and it's such a different place and very lovely in many ways, but completely different from here. And I suppose maybe, actually, now I think about it, it's not a coincidence that the story I wrote was about a mother and a daughter away, but the daughter disappears, and the mystery is what's happened to her. So yeah, for me, a holiday. The ghost story was set in Bordeaux in France, because we, as a family, hired this beautiful old, very old house, and we all went together. And it was, I just find places when I suppose not only is the place atmospheric, but your mind is at rest. So it's entirely open. Sorry, my colleague's just leaving the office. She said she'd give me a wave. yeah, so I think away is a very inspiring place to be if you're a
And do
writer.
you make notes while you're there, or do you wait till you get home? You do, yeah.
Well, but very often I'll start it. If I'm inspired, I'll actually really write as much as I can while I'm actually there. I used to get terrible insomnia, and I still do sometimes, particularly if I'm away and I, you know, the mind's got, it's not working on work, so it's got too much chuntering around. So the middle of the night, I think, is a great time to start writing.
Caroline, where does your inspiration come from?
I think it's just a combination of maybe you watch a film on TV or read a newspaper article, or obviously your imagination, something that's happened in your life or something someone tells you about. You don't use it in its entirety, but you'll just get a little nitpick out of it that you think, oh yeah. It's like Cara was saying about the nuggets. You could just get a nugget from all sorts of areas, and then you change it into something completely different. But I clearly need to go on more holidays. Not that we're doing it at the moment, are we? But
no, I think you're right. I mean, newspapers and the radio, actually. I listen to Radio 4 a lot, and sometimes they have this odd, slightly sort of unusual subjects that some of the programs will broach, or like you say, you'll see a little story in a newspaper. There was one not so long ago where elderly people were sort of disappearing in this particular area. What on earth is that all about? And that can really, you know, when they say truth is stranger than fiction, I think that really is true. Oh, and another, I once read a fascinating article about a chap who in his house, he would come back from shopping and stuff and smell bacon and think, well, I didn't fry bacon. What? This is really odd. It turned out somebody had started living in his loft and would do, can you imagine how creepy and ghastly that is? And once I heard about that, I read about stories in America where people have had people living in their crawl space, you know, that space that's under some houses in America.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, and so that inspired a story. I mean,
yeah. That is spooky, isn't it?
Yeah. Isn't it just?
Yeah, I bet that caused some arguments when the orange juice had gone and couples are blaming each other. We are coming up. We are coming up towards the end of our hour. We have got a bit more time left, but could you both give us a reminder of your current books, novellas, things that we can go off and buy after this, please? Caroline.
Lovely, yeah, thank you. So mine are, as I say, I've got sort of two on the go at the moment. So the first one again was my legal drama with the feminist and fun and feisty Natalie Batch and other characters. So that's Caroland Convictions, and that's available both as paperback and a download. So that's out at the moment, and look out for the next one in June. And then the other one, which is available, as I say, as a download, but this is going to be out in July, finally. And this is what I'm doing my giveaway on the Facebook page. So look out that and get your secrets ready, guys, and lies. So that's my Caroline England book rather than Caroland Betray Her.
Just before we move to Cara for a quick recap on what you've got going on, who does your covers, Caroline?
Well, the publishers do the covers, of course. So this is an imprint of Little Brown, and but it's had three different covers so far. This one, it had one cover for the ebook, then one for the larger trade paperback, and this is the one now. And I think I love the covers they do. And then
absolutely,
the publisher is Bloodhound Books. But in fairness, they have actually changed this cover, so that might make it. If you look online, it's a different cover now. So if anyone wants to look, have a look at that one, and look at the one online and see what you think, which is the best one.
They are great covers.
Brilliant, thank you. Cara, Do you want to give us a quick recap on your work?
Yes, yeah. So the one that is so they're in the library, in the large print section. I've got quite a few in there, and the latest one is this one, Missing in Paradise. So that's how it is in the library. And I think at the moment, if people, obviously the libraries aren't open, certainly over here anyway, but I think a lot of them are going, you can borrow ebooks from the library now. I've never done that myself. I quite like a print book myself. But and that one is at present being serialized on the People's Friend web, and if you just put Danger in Havana, People's Friend, then if anybody fancies it, it's actually free at the moment. How long it's going to stay up there, I'm not quite sure, but it's on there. And my next one, I don't have the publication date for it yet, but there's one, I called it Jeannie's Highland Rescue. So I don't know, sometimes they change the titles when they come out, but it's actually a two-part novella for People's Friend. So there's one novella 1 week, and then the next one comes the next week. And it's set in Scotland, and strangely enough, it's about Highland Rescue. That's the hero, very hunky, and yes, very hero-like.
I'd like to finish just with a quick recap of your competition, if I may, Caroline.
Yeah. Is it? Am I saying, or you saying, me?
Oh, absolutely! Please go right ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just doing a giveaway of this is a proof copy of Betray Her, so you'll be ahead of the game if you win. And I'll obviously bob it in the post, whoever wins it. And to be in it, to win it, you have to go on the website. And because all my novels are about, obviously, crime, but secrets and lies, you can tell me if you've committed a crime as well if you want, but maybe go for the secrets or the lie. And it can be tongue-in-cheek, so that's fine. So just post on the page a secret, a lie, and you'll go in the hat, and I'll pick someone out over the weekend, and then we can share an address and I can post it next week.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope we can get you to do an author chat at some point in the future, both of you. Could get in touch with myself or our superstar technician, Cass.
Done a great job.
And yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
For having us.
For information.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite.
Very well.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
And don't forget, our members can follow the hashtag UKCBCFest20 to watch this video again, to ask more questions and find out more about our gorgeous authors, Caroline and Cara.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.